Oh, my name is Eddie. Everybody called me Luci. So every time they refer to me around here, they refer to me as Eddie Luci Lucero. I was there from February of 1969 to February of 1970 as crew chief. And just like all the other crew chiefs, we started as gunners. Bill Vanderwidge and I started as a gunner with Bill Vanderwidge. When Bill Vanderwidge was getting ready to leave, they gave me his helicopter. And then, we crash landed it and kind of ruined it. But yeah, after you gun for a while, and then they move you into, our MOS was crew chief anyway. That's to pool maintenance, make sure that helicopter is ready, anything that it needs, periodic inspections, periodic maintenance, daily maintenance. And, we went through it every morning before we went out and every evening when we came back. I mean, sometimes you had to change things out in the middle of the night, and then maintenance crews would come out. They'd help you get your stuff ready. And then they had another crew that they just, all they did was repair holes in the helicopter. They came out, they're sheet metal workers. They came out there and they drill holes and put rivets in where we got a bullet hole or whatever, And wash them down and clean them up. And I'm very proud, man. I had the shiniest helicopter in the whole flight. I sat there with some of that floor wax and just rubbing and rubbing and rubbing all the time, rubbing compound and rubbing until things shine like a new penny. Everybody called me Lucy, so I named my helicopter Lucy in Disguise. And I would put our names on there, and we'd change different things, take the doors off, and then we'd take the doors off for the pilots, and we'd run everything open. But I mean, it takes a lot of maintenance. It kept, we had the gunner's job was to make sure that those guns were ready for the next day. He had to pull all the maintenance on the guns. And then, if you get a good gunner and a good crew chief, they help each other get their stuff done. Well, we had M60s. A lot of us carried cases of hand grenades. We carried all kinds of stuff. M79, M60s. And we had the M16 sitting up in the back there. And we carry smoke grenades and CS gas grenades. We're ready. We're ready for a war anytime. Probably around 3,000 rounds a piece for the machine guns. The helicopter Charlie models, they carried the rocket pods. But they were pretty much getting obsolete around our time. They came in with the Cobras. I was always asked to go to the Rat Pack, and I thought about going to the Rat Pack. It was the gunships, right? But then they were doing away with the Charlie models, and they're bringing in the Cobras, and the Cobra doesn't take a crew. It takes 2 pilots. So the only thing I'd be doing was just pulling maintenance on it, and I wanted to fly. I want to go out. Oh, we did go out, and we took, there's several different things. I mean, they had what they call DCS. They would take one helicopter and they'd go around and move dignitaries from one place to another, and sometimes they had civilians that had to move from one province to another. And then ours was to insert and extract infantrymen into different areas around the country. Our unit was pretty much, everybody said we were detached. I don't think it was really like officially detached, but we traveled all over, man. We were down from the Mekong Delta all the way up north. I mean, we traveled all over, and we took on anything. We took on anything. We also did medevac. A lot of times we were out in the area and they're calling for medevac, and one of our helicopters we'd usually trail, break and go back and pick up wounded or KIAs. So that night you had a lot more cleaning to do. Yeah, Bill and we crashed a few times. I think Arnie Leak was the pilot. I can't remember who the Peter pilot was. But Arnie Leak was flying aircraft commander that day. Bill Vanderwidge was the crew chief, and I was gunning. And we went into a hot LZ, and some bullets were coming through the front plexiglass, and we had a whole load of grunts, the infantry, and the bullet came through the front shield, and it kind of like splintered the plexiglass and caught Mr. Leak on the face. And the bullet came through and it hit a grunt that was in the back seat, riding in the back. And that morning, Mr. Leak had gotten on my butt really bad. He was a second platoon pilot, see, and you got your first platoon maggots, and you had the second platoon. They changed their name all the time. But it was a rivalry, okay, and when the second platoon came over to fly our helicopters, for whatever reason, they either had a Red X machine, helicopter, or they just needed another ship for their pilots, give one of our pilots a day down, they'd send them to us. And I mean, there was always a little bit of bickering and stuff like that, always, just because the rivalry. Anyway, Mr. Leak come out there that day, and he tells me, I was crewing already. No, I wasn't. I was still gunning. I was gunning for Bill Vanderwedge. And he come out there and told me, "Where's your chicken plate?" And I said, "It's under the seat." And he told me why. I said, "Because I don't want to get shot in the ass." And he says, "Put it on." And I argued with him. I don't want to put it on. And he says, that's not a question. He says, "That's an order." Well, we didn't take orders too good, right? But we had a little bickering, kind of like a little argument like that. But he forced me. He ordered me to put that chicken plate on. So I put it on. He didn't. I don't know if he told Bill to do the same thing, because Bill left his under the seat. A chicken plate is about a 1/2-inch armor plate. Kind of fits, kind of shape of your body. Fits right underneath your flak jacket. It's got a piece of Velcro that kind of holds in place to keep you from getting shot in the chest. But we figured. Liked it better underneath the seat because they're always shooting up. They don't shoot like from the sides as much. Well, I guess they do shoot from the side, but they don't want to get shot from the bottom. Well, anyway, Bill kept his under the seat. When I went into this hot LZ, rounds came through the floor and hit that chicken plate, and then slapped up again against Bill's, better behind, all right? Mr. Leak got cut up with plexiglass. He thought he was shot, so he let the Peter pilot take control. And I took a round from the tree line, and it hit me dead center on the chicken plate. I mean, it slammed me up against the back transmission wall, and I went out right over the top of the ammo box. They thought I was dead. They were looking back, and they said that he's down, he's had it, And the Peter pilot, instead of pulling out, away from the fire, he went straight up. He just pulled and he went straight up. So we were the target. I mean, everybody was shooting at us up there. And well, we finally got out, and I wake up and I find out we're on the way to the medevac pad. I think they were taking me to the morgue. They thought I was dead. I was mad because they made me put on a chicken plate. And last year in Las Vegas, me and Arnie Leak got together. I hadn't seen him in like forever. And him and I got together last year in Las Vegas, and he told me, he says, "You remember," he says, "when you and I," he says, "got in an argument," he says, "and I worried you?" I says, "Yeah," and we just kind of stared at each other a little bit. I told him, "You saved my life." Well, that's what stubbornness will do to people. You used to doing certain things one way, but person had to maintain respect. We had to, we could be friends anytime else, but when we were doing the job, there had to be one person in charge, and that was our aircraft commander. And I can tell you a little story about one time on bunker guard. I flew all day long, and after the day, I stayed out on the flight line working on my helicopter, getting it ready for the next day. Just before I finished, they came out and told me, "Hey, you got bunker guard tonight." So I says, "Okay," I says. So I left straight from there, and I went straight out to the bunker line. And when I got out there, they didn't have any of the big bunkers available. I had to go to a secondary bunker, which are little smaller bunkers that kind of fit along in between the big bunkers. And when I got out there, there was, there was this, what we call an FNG, and everybody knows what an FNG is. So, when I got there, he said, everything's ready. You got to just, take your turn. So sat out there, and I told the guy, I says, it's brand spanking new guy. And I told him, I said, well, I'll tell you what, I says, why don't you just go ahead and go to sleep, I says, and I'll watch. I says, in about 2-3 hours, I said, I'll wake you up, I says, and you take over. So, and I look at him, and his eyes are just brighter than bright. He says, no, he says, I think you go ahead and go to sleep, he says, and I'll watch. And I thought, well, hell, that's pretty good. I knew he wasn't going to go to sleep. He was scared. So, I went to sleep. I, got up against the sandbag and, went to sleep. And a little bit, onto the night, he shakes me, tells me, hey, he says, there's somebody out there. He says, and he's crawling along the wires. And I thought, well, nobody crawls along the wires. They come through the wires, but they don't crawl along the wires. So I shoot him, I says. And he goes, I ain't going to shoot. And I said, so, I got up and I turned around. I'll be damn sure there's somebody crawling parallel along the wires. So I took the radio and I cranked that radio up and it's dead. And I thought, damn, he's already cut the wires. And I stayed watching him, and he'd crawl a little bit and stop, and he'd crawl a little bit and stop. So I took the M16 and I zeroed in on him right on the head. And I waited him pick up his head, and I pounded him right in the head. And boom, dropped him. His head just dropped. And I could hear the Jeep coming down the road, the officer of the guard coming down the road, hauling butt, and I could hear him way down there. And I stayed watching. And the guy's head comes up after a little while, and he starts crawling again. So I thought, okay, I zeroed off on his head again, and I hit him again. And the head dropped down, and he just laid there. But this time I can hear that Jeep coming faster, and they're really moving. They're getting really close. Stayed watching, and I looked again, and here's the head starts coming up, and I saw movement, and I thought, oh, hell, this time I'll shoot him on the trunk. Can't miss that, right? So I'm zeroing in like this, and about that time the Jeep comes in, and he comes off the road and into the bar ditch and right up to the bunker, to the bunker line. And that officer of the guard, he got off, waving his hands and told me, hey, he says, don't shoot. He says, that's our radio man. And I like stopped, and I thought, who in the hell, I said, would send a radio man out in the middle of the night? They were having problems with the radios, but they didn't contact nobody. So, so about that time, that guy's head comes up again, look out there, and, they go out there and bring him. I hit him twice on the head, right on the steel pot. I hit him twice. And come over, that guy was all dazed out, man. He was like rocked. And Sergeant of the Guard that night, he takes his flashlight and he shakes it in my face, says, you want me to hit you with this? And I put that M16 right up to his head, and I says, you want me to shoot you? And, no trouble, no this, it's not his fault, and all this stuff. Hey, you're going to send somebody out on the wires, and you're going to put me on the bunker line. You better tell me what you got planned going on out there. That's the way it ended. Now, when, everybody made fun of me afterwards. They didn't make fun of me because I was shooting at him. They made fun of me because I didn't kill him. They thought, well, it was you're a better shot than that. And they just teased me like forever and ever that I didn't get him. But I got him twice. But stuff like that happened all the time. One time we was out on the bunker line. And again, flight crew always got the small bunkers. We had John Wallace and I were sent out from the flight line to bunker guard. And when we got out there, well, they had the little foxhole, but, I don't know why, because we never did it before, but he and I went out to this foxhole, and for some reason we took a flashlight and put it down inside the hole before we got in. And it was full of scorpions and a rat. And those scorpions were tearing that rat all apart. So I said, well, we're not getting down in there. right? So we actually stayed up on the top, but I mean, that hole was full of scorpions. So we just stayed on top, up against the sandbags. Well, later that night, there was movement out beyond in the tree line, beyond the wires. And Bunker 1, was cranking on the radio, hey, there's movement on the line, and permission to, set off a flare. Bunker 1 was way out by the front gate, and we was probably a couple of 100 yards down. And we're looking up there, and they gave him permission to go ahead and shoot the flare. Well, this guy, whoever shot the flare, we don't even know who was in there, but whoever shot the flare didn't come outside to shoot the flare. He shot it inside. He tried to get it out through the opening. Well, it never made it out the opening. It was just bouncing from wall to wall inside that bunker line. You could see bodies coming out of that bunker. Yeah, that was humorous. That thing lit up that bunker inside like midday. So, we found things that would humor us and kind of take it for what it's worth.
Did y'all ever play pranks on each other?
Oh yeah.
That's probably a stupid question.
Oh yeah, man. Especially like he could find a snake. You could kill a snake, and then you go stick it in somebody's bunk. When they were going to go to sleep, and you stick that snake down in there. If you let anybody know you were afraid of snakes or afraid of rats or anything like this, well, you're going to pay a price.
You found it in your sleeping bag, huh?
Well, you put it inside. No sleeping bags. All we had was just like a blanket, But most of the time, everybody just slept on top because the only time you cover up, because of the bugs and stuff, insects. But yeah, the snake was dead. It wasn't going to hurt anything. Yeah. We just did things just to do it, to humor ourselves. There's hard times, but you know what? Amongst all those hard times, we managed to find good times.